All right, there we are. We are back on the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. How is everybody doing on this fine Tuesday? Um, just real quick on the programming update. Um, Sorry for getting started a minute or two later. This is how do I want to? Trying to think of how do I want to put this with a lot of the things that are um, transpiring when it comes to the transfer portal. Um, they have made some significant changes. Um, when it comes to it, they have adopted it. I'm just trying to get it pulled up here. When it comes to the transfer portal language, I thought that was um, interesting that they needed to get it solved, get it hammered out. It's it's kind of one of those things that they have that they've started doing some things. When it comes to it, as ESPN.com has reported, Ross Dillinger, pretty much everybody that is a college football reporter has done on the transfer portal. It is basically to the effect of um, it said the NCAA is officially making transfer portal season from December to January. The administrative committee voted on Tuesday to adopt the proposed dates of January 2nd through the 16th. The new transfer portal will follow for all FBS and FCS players in 2026. The college football players, including grad transfers, must now wait until January 2nd to officially enter their names in the transfer portal. Blah, 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 blah. One of the other suspected changes that are coming is get this tweet, get that tweet out. One of the other suspected changes is going to be that 30-day window when coaches are let go. This is the last of that going into it. So basically, from my understanding, instead of the transfer portal window being 30 days after a coach is let go, they're going to give the new coach an additional 5 days of the transfer portal window. That coach is going to get 5 days before you can officially enter your name into the portal. Do I think it's what do I think about that? I think it don't really matter what the vast majority thinks. Um, I think that when it comes down to it, the proof is in the pudding. To be honest, I don't think that there is a big contingency that's going to fight back against it. I think that there's people out there that just want to know what their roster is going to be. Um, I think that has a lot to do with everything that's going on. Because realistically, the people that are building rosters have no real idea. They don't really have a finite detail of what their roster is going to be, at least for the year. Because now, you've seen it at Oregon where the running back that came from Tulane um, entered his name into the portal. He basically said, "Deuces, I'm out." Um, do I think the kid that entered that left Tulane and hopped in the portal? Do I think that he is Do I think he's wrong for doing that? Leaving Tulane, he got paid, but it's tough right now because you've got just all kinds of things going on. Amon throws in there. James Franklin went full James Franklin. I didn't think it was possible. What a time to be alive. Yeah, we're gonna get to James Franklin here soon. It's I guess I could pull up the top 20, pull up the AP poll. There is some surprises in there. I guess we will transition into that. Ohio State number one. Not a shock there. I think the Buckeyes are where they should be. Miami at number two. I think out of Ohio State and Miami, they've looked the best out of both teams that I've seen thus far play, especially from the watch parties and everything that we've done on this channel. Oregon goes and gets a big win at Happy Valley last week. I think Oregon's got their biggest test coming this week. I still got to finalize what we're going to stream. It's looking like Alabama, Missouri's a big one. I think Indiana, Oregon, we're going to throw in there. Preseason 1 or 2 are gone like a fart in the wind. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, we're gonna get there. Ole Miss hangs in there. They were idle this week, or last week, as I should say. Texas A&M right there. They've looked pretty impressive as well. A little shaky on offense for my liking, but Oklahoma right in the mix. Indiana, Alabama, Texas Tech, Georgia, LSU. Tennessee moves up 3 spots. Georgia Tech still in the mix. Missouri, they got like I said, they got that big one with Alabama. Missouri's 5-0, Alabama 4-1. Not necessarily a elimination game just quite yet. Michigan at 4-1. For all intents and purposes, Michigan's playoff hopes are still alive. Notre Dame's playoff hopes are still alive. If you're an ACC school, or a Big 12 school, you are rooting hard that Notre Dame drops another. They drop another game. To be honest with you, if you are a fan of that conference or if your school is on the bubble, because I think 10-2 Notre Dame gets in, especially if they reel off 10 in a row. That's just something to be said there. Illinois got the big showdown with Ohio State this weekend. We'll get into the games from the weekend. BYU hanging out at 5-0. I think that's something to be said there. We're going to start having the playoff shows come up soon. Skipper of UCLA has as many top 10 wins. Yeah, the James Franklin stuff is tough. Vandy takes one on the chin. They fall a little bit in the polls. Arizona State kind of climbing their way back. Iowa State took a big tumble. Memphis is in there at 6-0. South Florida finds their way back, and Florida State on the fringe. Penn State dropping out, and Texas dropping out. Just goes to show you how fickle the how it started and how it's going. Throughout the week, Friday, you had West Virginia get taken apart essentially by BYU. Ohio State dismantles Minnesota. Miami kind of called the dogs off on Florida State and let them back in. That's just, I kind of think that's bizarre to a certain extent that they let them back in. It's just something that Miami kind of did that I was shocked that they called the dogs off. Oklahoma blows out Kent State. Also, fun fact: John Mateer is pushing to play this week against Texas. Um, we're gonna get to Texas in a minute. Mississippi State just didn't have the dogs to hang with Texas A&M, and then we get to Penn State, UCLA, the topic du jour. Nico threw for 166 yards and ran for 128 yards. So there is that. Nico was their top rusher. Penn State was 4 of 9 on third down, 1 of 3 on fourth down. Total yards for UCLA, Penn State, and Jim Knowles gives up 446 yards total offense. UCLA ran for a total of 280 yards. Penn State, time of possession, UCLA 39 minutes, Penn State 20 minutes, and I think that's the tail of the tape. Penn State turned it over once. I know that is something to be said there, but it's just all about, what your perspective is on it. I think that, heading into this, UCLA kind of knew it was going to be a sleepy game, but also this is what the Big Ten wanted. They wanted a national conference. They got themselves a national conference. I just don't think there's any more to be said about that. I mean, Penn State did battle back and score 30 points in the second half to pull close, but realistically, at the end of the day, Drew Aller 19 of 26 for 200 yards. Drew Aller, also their leading rusher. UCLA really shut the run down. Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton only combined for 19 carries for 89 yards out of the 157. UCLA did, or not UCLA, Penn State, the receivers didn't really do anything out of the ordinary. It begs the question, as we look at Penn State's schedule, they've dropped 2 in a row. Is Penn State out of the playoffs? Not entirely, but if you look at their remaining schedule, I think that you have also Paul Feinbaum back on ESPN. His statement is he feels like James Franklin's time is up at Penn State. I think he'll be, I don't know. I think these next 4 games for Penn State are going to be the be all end all for their for their season this year. It begs the question, did Penn State keep the wrong quarterback in letting Bo Perbula go? Missouri seems like they are happy with their decision to pick up Bo Perbula. I know some people I know the Penn State Happy Valley folks are probably not as excited on the Bo Perbula stuff, but that's something you got to ask yourself. But all the preseason rankings and things of that sort are, it's just what it is. Penn State was like number 2, Texas was number 1, and they both find themselves on the outside looking in. Drew Aller, Arch Manning have not lived up to the perspective. They have not lived up to the standard, as some would say. That's just kind of where it's at on their end of it. But like I said, Penn State's got Northwestern coming to town, and then they got to go to Iowa at night. I'm sure that's probably going to be a blackout game. That's going to be a big game for Iowa. If you're Penn State, because you have Ohio State next week, and then after you get done playing Ohio State, you got to go. You have Indiana coming to town, Michigan State, Nebraska, Rutgers. if Penn State is now, they find themselves in the same spot that Notre Dame does, they are in a playoff game each week. I don't think anybody can argue that. It's just kind of what it is now. Some people want to fight back and say that Penn State's going to get in the playoff. Well, they got to beat Ohio State, and judging by the performance that Penn State put out there last week, I'm not so sure that they're going to even come close to playing with the Buckeyes. In my opinion, Ohio State is in the driver's seat when it comes to the national landscape. Them in Miami, no blemishes on the record, but Texas, we get to Texas, you got Oklahoma next week. That's where it comes down to it. And if Mateer plays, that game gets a whole lot tougher. Kentucky, they got to go to Kentucky, to Mississippi State, and I don't think Mississippi State for Texas is going to be a walk in the park. Mississippi State kind of got embarrassed last year, and I don't think Jeff Lebby is going to forget about that. And then you have Vanderbilt coming to town, and then you got to go on the road to Athens, and you've got the fighting Bobby Petrinos at Arkansas. Who the hell knows what that program's even going to look like by the end of the year when it rolls around to Texas. I mean, they're coming on the road, but still. And then you end it with Texas A&M. So your likelihood of making the playoffs is slim to none if you are a Texas fan. I would say Arch Manning comes back next year and see what you got. That's just kind of where I'm at on it. And then you have the Alabama Vanderbilt game. A lot of things were said leading up to this. A lot of emotion in this. Alabama comes out with a pretty dominant performance. Pavia didn't play as well as he thought. So there is that. I think Alabama, for all intents and purposes, they're in a driver's seat too. Outside of Florida State, they got Missouri this week. If Alabama goes out there and they beat Missouri like they beat Vanderbilt, it's going to be tough for them. But Alabama's schedule comes down to, they got Missouri this week, Tennessee next week, South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, Eastern Illinois, and then Auburn. So there's where Alabama is sitting. It is definitely, it's not the easiest road, but it's a better road than what Texas has, to be honest. Texas Tech rolls, Georgia rolls over Kentucky. Iowa State slips against Cincinnati. They had to go on the road for that one. Iowa State started out strong. Like, they opened up in Ireland. South Dakota State got in a dogfight with Iowa. Was pretty much and also, I would really like to know the person at Iowa State who thought it was a good idea to schedule a game at Arkansas State in September. Just bravo. And then they beat Arizona, and they took the loss last week to Cincinnati, and then they got to get ready for Colorado. Then it's BYU, Arizona, TCU, Kansas, Oklahoma State. Iowa State's schedule is not really a walk in the park either. There's a lot of variables that go into this playoff hunt, and as I'm looking at it, you would think there's going to be teams that are shoo-ins. I'm not necessarily so sure that they are. We'll turn the focus to Notre Dame, Boise State. Am I shocked that Notre Dame put up 28 points? A little bit. I thought that they would have probably hung a few more on the Broncos, but it was just kind of one of those, they had the victory in hand, did not really let it get away. Boise State is terrible on third down, 6 of 15. Notre Dame was okay. They were 4 of 9. Boise, for the most part, Notre Dame held them in check on the ground. Boise threw the ball a little bit. It's just kind of what it was. The Notre Dame offensive line does not give up any sacks, which that's a positive on their end of it. So Notre Dame's look ahead, it's a 1 week playoff going forward for the Irish, to be honest. The big thing that they were probably hoping for at the beginning of the season was to split with Miami and A&M. The A&M thing happened. You have to move on from that, which I think, they did. Notre Dame hung 50 2 consecutive weeks. They go get a 21-point victory at home. Have NC State coming to town this weekend. Then USC. And I think USC would love nothing more than to spoil Notre Dame's season, because at that point, with 3 losses, if you're Notre Dame, I think you're on Q watch. Same thing with Texas. I think teams that take on the third loss, you're going to see a lot of guys opt out. I know a lot of fans are not going to like that, but you're going to see a lot of guys opt out. Also, Virginia sneaks in there and gets a win over Louisville. I think there's a lot of investment there at Virginia. I feel like they're like, finally we're breaking through. But Penn State falls out of the top 25. Texas falls out of the top 25. There's a lot of things that had happened in that. Also, the Bill Belichick experiment not going as planned at North Carolina. I would hate to say that I was shocked by that, but I'm not really. North Carolina only musters up 10 points. You go to the box score, go to team stats. Clemson was still terrible on third down, 4 of 12. North Carolina was worse. They were 2 of 11. Belichick's team gives up 399 yards through the air, 488 total. Clemson heavily penalized. So was North Carolina. Clemson 7 for 85. North Carolina 8 for 75. And Clemson turned the ball over. Brad Johnson's son started for North Carolina. I kind of thought he should have been the starter from the rip. I know Gio Gonzalez was a talented kid at South Alabama. It just didn't work out. I think that's another kid entered the portal, got a bag of money, and it's not working out. Kansas State, also another team that was a playoff hopeful this year. They are reeling. They drop another one to Baylor. Kansas State 2-4. They thought making Avery Johnson the starter was going to fix everything that Will Howard didn't do well. Kansas State folks, my question is how's it going? Will Howard says hello. Maryland drops one to Washington. The Big Ten race is starting to heat up. The SEC race is heating up. There's a lot of going through some other games here. Nebraska hangs on against Michigan State. They end up with a big victory. Matt Rule, the Michigan State people, I think, should be way more patient than what they are. Colorado drops one on the road at TCU. They kind of return to the scene of the crime from where it all got started with Coach Prime. I don't necessarily know what's going on in Colorado. Prime had his shoe off, thinking he had blood clots. Haven't really seen anything from that. I'm sure it'll come up at his next media availability. That's just kind of what that signals to me. Duke takes care of Cal 45-21. I think that game was out of reach. Close. Tulsa drops a big one to Memphis. They essentially get blown out. I would say in the American, it's a 3-team race: Tulane, South Florida, and Memphis. Whoever arises from the ashes there, I would say that those are probably the top 3 teams in that conference. In 2 weeks, we're about to find out what Memphis is made of, because they got South Florida. They have UAB before South Florida. Then they have Tulane. And we'll see if Memphis is in the driver's seat going into the conference championship. That's just kind of some of the things that stuck out to me over the weekend. Judging and looking at some other things, Sark had some comments. Says he defends his culture at Texas. But here's the article on ESPN.com. Steve Sarkisian, once again, is the target of widespread scrutiny after Texas's highest profile loss. Blah, 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 blah. They're going to the Red River, but Sark's comments were, probably wouldn't be fair to those guys to say, our culture is perfect right now. Sarkisian said Monday. They're all doing the right things, blah, 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 blah. A lot of coach speak there. So their mindset is all there. So that tells me the culture is right. But here's the telling stat. Texas, in its last AP top 10 games, they are 3-8. I don't know if I'm stunned to be it just a lot of minutia there. I just don't. I'm not buying it. I think if Texas loses this weekend, I don't know if the Sarkisian tenure is over in Texas. I would think it'll be really hard for them to move on from Sarkisian. I don't think it's a the be all end all, to be honest with you. I'm looking at it from the perspective of you have to keep some type of faith inside the program. It's just kind of what it is. You've invested so much into the roster. It'll be bad. It's going to go one of two ways. I think it'll be interesting to see how Penn State and Texas navigate going forward after they take the third loss. Some people can say they disagree with them being on quit watch, but I'll also raise you this. If they take the third loss, it's over. You're not getting into the playoffs. So a lot of the NFL guys will probably say, chunk up the deuces and say it was real, it was fun, but it wasn't real fun. And the guys that want to go elsewhere, that aren't playing, that feel like they should be playing, probably going to be portal season in Texas. And then also, it's a big indictment on Sark just because Oklahoma has finally got it going. They're rolling. They're ranked in the top 10. Texas, you're nowhere near that. And Oklahoma, for all intents and purposes, has a chance to end your season, to be honest. So there is that. But if you made it in the program this long, if you could do us the biggest solid here and hit that like and subscribe button and help us grow this platform. I'm going to be doing live streams this weekend, probably be going live the rest of the week. I was out of the office on Monday, but we'll be going live the rest of the week. And then on Saturday, we'll be doing some live streams. And then Saturday night will be the call-in show. So if you want to call and talk about the week that was, we will be entertaining that as well. but just some Heisman odds via BetMGM. Carson Beck leading the way. I think it's a very good redemption story on Carson Beck's part. People buried him in the offseason before the season even started. So there's that. Dante Moore in second at plus 700. Jeremiah Smith in there. Ty Simpson's going to be in there as long as Oklahoma, or not Oklahoma, but as long as Alabama continues to win. Ty Simpson's going to find himself in the thick of the Heisman race, to be honest. Fernando Mendoza, he's in the conversation. Julian Zane at Ohio State. Ohio State is number one right now. They are their premier program. Them in Miami. Trinidad Chambliss in there as well. I think Chambliss, he's plus 1,500, but I think if he keeps winning at Ole Miss, I think he's going to be in the thick of the race. Marcel Reed is in there. Sam Livet is in there. CJ Carr and Joey Aguilar. I think Joey Aguilar, if he goes out there and beats Alabama, he's going to leapfrog a bunch of the guys on the list because that'd be a big win for Tennessee. He almost got Georgia. They gave Georgia all they wanted in that game. So there is that. That is the Heisman race. Not that I really was diving into too much politics, but allegedly ESPN ripped Feinbaum off the air, I guess, last week. I don't know how true that is. It is what it is. ESPN owns their network, and then they go quiet. Not shocked there. But one graphic that I found was interesting is that Greg McElroy's top 10 before the season started. He had Cade Klubnik 1. I don't think he's in there. But Greg does not have Arch Manning on here. He does not have Julian Sayin on here. Drew Aller is on here. Garrett Nussmeier, Carson Beck, Lenore Sellers, Sawyer Robinson, DJ Lagway, Hayes King. I think the big thing running into this is I'll be shocked to see where the Florida thing, what their end of the season win total shapes up to be. I think that's going to be a fascinating follow throughout the season. I've been following the Florida program pretty close the last couple of months. As we look ahead to the upcoming week, the far looking ahead, Ohio State travels to Illinois playing for the Illa Buck Trophy. So we'll see where that shakes out. I would assume Ohio State, they're 14.5-point favorites. It's either going to be super close or Ohio State is going to blow them out. Alabama on the road at Missouri. Pitt travels to Florida State. I would say that FSU is kind of on that fringe of they could possibly find themselves out of the playoff race before November even starts. I'm not saying they drop one to Pitt, but it's going to be tough for Florida State. Let me pull up their schedule and see what they have left. Back-to-back losses, Miami, Virginia. They have Pitt, Stanford, got Clemson, and then they end it with Florida at the end of the year. Who knows what Florida will be at the end of the year. And if Clemson keeps on winning, they could probably fight and claw and see if they can try to get back into the playoff picture. But we'll see. I'm not going to count Clemson out 100% yet. Just some of the interesting matchups going forward. The big heavy hitters at 3:30. Indiana at Oregon. I think for all intents and purposes, all of college football is going to have their eyeballs glued to that Indiana-Oregon game. because it's going to be the telling factor. Indiana, Oregon. Is Indiana for real? Are they a good ball club? Oregon, obviously at home. Indiana traveling across country. We'll have to see how this whole thing shakes out. I'm going to reserve judgment. I want to see what the injury reports look like. I want to see what kind of some of this, how this matchup is going to shake out. Indiana at Oregon. I think another game that a lot of people are going to be glued to is Oklahoma, Texas. It could be that we're looking at the proverbial take out the trash moment with Texas, Oklahoma, because if Texas drops this game, it's over in Austin. There's going to be no way for them to get back in, especially having or it'll be their third loss that they take. I think the playoff committee's been pretty firm on this. I think that, you're looking at, that's what you're looking at. When you take your third loss, you're done. Stick a fork in them. So we'll see, especially if Mateer plays. If Mateer plays and plays well and beats Texas, it would be a hell of a storyline. Texas eliminated at the Red River Shootout or the Red River Rivalry or whatever they're calling it now. So there is that. Some other fascinating things. I don't think Georgia Tech should struggle with Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech trying to put their program back together after they removed their head coach. Notre Dame of sorts has got NC State coming to town. Notre Dame should handle NC State, and that is going to piss off a lot of people because that is the Peacock exclusive game. Yay. Iowa State travels to Boulder. We'll have to see what that looks like. I think there's a lot going on in Boulder behind the scenes that isn't being talked about. Just very bizarre on how this. I think the whole. I'm probably going to catch some flack for this, but I think the whole Deion Sanders experiment is coming to an end sooner rather than later in Boulder. Some people will agree with that. Other people won't. I wouldn't begrudge Deion for the stepping down. I need to focus on my health. I wouldn't be shocked if that is what it is, because if the guy isn't healthy and he can't do the job every day, the hours that you got to put in and a lot of the stuff that you have to do with it is what it is. It was good while it lasted. Colorado, it put Colorado back on the national map. Now the big thing is that what does that roster look like post Deion is the big thing, and then who do you hire also, because you're going to have to replace probably the entire staff. I would say Shermer probably will not be there. I would say a lot of guys will probably not be around in Boulder post Deion. Just my opinion. There's a lot of moving parts going on some things right now that I'm watching closely. Arkansas has got to travel up to Neyland. I don't think Tennessee will have any issues. Now, the big one that nobody's talking about is 7 o'clock on ESPN. Florida takes on Texas A&M. That game is on ESPN. I think if you're a Florida fan, you're watching very intently. Texas A&M is only a 7.5 point favorite. Everything with me tells me that Florida's probably going to cover that line. I mean, they shut Texas down, only gave up 21 points. I am on board with if you told me that Texas came, or not Texas, but if you told me that Florida wins that game outright at College Station, I'm not shocked. Because I'm with Tyler Siskey on this one. I think Florida is better than what their record will be at the end of the year, like it was last year. And Billy gets another signature win. That would be 2 top 10 opponents in 2 weeks. That's the big thing when it comes down to Florida. Lance Leipold and Kansas go on the road at Texas Tech at 7:30. I think that's another fascinating game. Texas Tech, they're big 14.5-point favorites. I don't think that matters much to Lance Leipold at all in Kansas. They were, I think, 21-point favorites last year when they played Colorado, and Colorado was a top 25 team, and Kansas took them to the woodshed. So we'll see where I have an eyeball on that one. And then the big one on ABC, Georgia at Auburn. I think Kirby really needs to win this game, but I also think Hugh Freeze needs to win this game. It's 3.5 points. Georgia is a 3.5-point road favorite. It's hard to win on the road in the SEC. I know that much. This could be another Hugh Freeze special, like last year when A&M came to town. They were totally looking past Auburn. I think for the most part, a lot of people have wrote Auburn off. I think it'll get weird down on the plains if Hugh Freeze gets blown out. But I also think that if he can play, as long as Auburn can do some stuff on offense and have some success, I think that I wouldn't rule out Auburn just yet. And then on NBC, USC got Michigan coming in. And I think this is a big game for Sherrone Moore. If Michigan wants to proverbially take the next step, they are in the thick of it for the playoff hunt. The only loss they've taken this year is on the road at Oklahoma, and that was before Oklahoma got rolling. I think for the most part, USC, if they go and win at USC, I think that pretty much knocks USC out of the playoff hunt because USC's got to go to Notre Dame. It's not looking good. And then Michigan, for all intents and purposes, after Washington, all leading up to Ohio State, you have Michigan State, which that's a rivalry game. It'll be closer than what people think it will be because Michigan will be big favorites in it if they keep winning. But I think that game is always close, no matter if the teams are good, bad, or in between. Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland, and then they have the final showdown with the bully of the Big Ten, Ohio State. So we'll see where Michigan winds up. It could go really, really good for the Wolverines. I don't necessarily think I'm counting them out because I think they can go on the road, and I think Sherrone Moore is going to run. He's going to run the shit out of the ball against USC. I think that's what's on the menu for them. So I actually like Michigan in that one. USC 2.5-point favorites. I like Michigan in that one. I hate to be that guy, but until USC proves it to me, I'm not buying any stock in Lincoln Riley. I think he has a big buyout protecting him, and I think USC really can't do much to get around that. Another fascinating one is on SEC Network, South Carolina LSU. I think that is a big matchup. We're gonna know where South Carolina is at because I think if LSU blows them out, I think Beamer is as good as gone. I think he's going to go to Virginia Tech. I just really think that it gives him a chance to reset. South Carolina and him, I would think, would mutually part ways, but LSU needs this one, because if LSU drops this one to South Carolina, they've got, it is not a easy gauntlet for LSU the rest of the way. They got to go on the road at Vandy. They have A&M coming to town. They got to go to Tuscaloosa. Who the hell knows what Arkansas is going to be? They have Western Kentucky. I would say that's a dub. And then you end it with Oklahoma. And the problem with LSU is that you don't want to be a 2-loss team heading into that Oklahoma game at all, because that's kind of what your season's going to hinge on. And I think once you take that third loss, I don't think you're getting in, because of the way the schedules work out in other conferences. That's just my opinion. I think a 10-2 is getting in. A 10-2 team is going to get in over a 9-3 team. And the only way a 9-3 team gets in is as long as you can get in the conference championship and win it, like Clemson did last year. But for all intents and purposes, the biggest game in the Big 12 this week, I think is Utah. Is going to be Utah. That's just kind of what it is. I just feel like you've got that game going. Utah's 5.5-point favorites. Arizona State on the road, which they've kind of struggled going on the road. They took that loss at Mississippi State. I mean, they did get a win at Baylor, but Arizona State, kind of the darlings of college football last year. But if you look at their schedule going out, heading into the thick of October through November, you are looking at Houston, which I don't think is a pushover. You've got Texas Tech. You've got West Virginia. I think Rich Rod is completely retooling a program there, so they would get that one. Then you got to go on the road at Colorado, and then you end it with Arizona in a rivalry game where you guys stuck the trident in the middle of the field. So I would say Arizona's going to have something for you at the end of the year. That's just kind of where I stand on it. The teams that are in the driver's seats right now. Also, don't forget about North Texas, the mean green, and the American as well. I think the group of 5 bid you're going to see is going to be interesting. The teams that are sitting atop the ACC this week are Miami's only played one conference game, but that is what it is. But Virginia, Duke, Georgia Tech, Miami, SMU are all undefeated in conference. Duke is taking a loss, so we'll see where the ACC race falls out. But on the North Carolina thing, when it comes to the ACC, they got to go to Cal. I believe they have an open date this week. They've got the open date. They've got to go to Cal. Then Syracuse, I think, is a corpse. No Angeli. It's going to be tough on Syracuse the rest of the way out. Stanford, Wake Forest, Duke, NC State. And I'm sure a guy like Manny Diaz would love nothing more than to put it on Bill Belichick. So there's that. In the Big Ten, it's Let me pull up Indiana's schedule. We'll run through what Indiana has left. After Oregon, they've got Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, Purdue. I think the folks for the TV purposes thought Penn State, Indiana was going to be a highly ranked matchup, and it just wasn't. It's not going to be. I think Penn State and Texas are reeling. They're on the outside looking in. That's kind of what it is for the most part. And then you have Wisconsin at the bottom of the Big Ten. Wisconsin's lost 3 in a row. I don't think it's salvageable there because Wisconsin's got a gauntlet coming up. I said this before the beginning of the season. I thought he would beat Miami and Middle Tennessee. Maryland was gettable. They ended up losing by 17 there. They got blown out by Alabama. They lost to Michigan. They have Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota. I just think that that's kind of what it comes down to. Wisconsin ain't got NIL money. And this is where it's going to show on rosters. That it people can talk about all they want, but Nick Saban said it best last year: if you don't pay the right guys, you're shit out of luck. But the SEC is, they have a lot of teams still in it. They have Ole Miss, A&M, Alabama, Missouri, Oklahoma, Georgia, LSU, Vanderbilt, Tennessee. Those are all in the mix. As of now, I mean, there's going to be some cannibalization in there, but I'm just not seeing it. I think the SEC will get 4 this year. And if it stopped today, the 4 would be Missouri. Well, no, the 4 would be Oklahoma, Ole Miss, A&M, Alabama. So we're gonna have to see who the highest. I hate to say it, but I think the ACC and Big 12 are going to be one bid leagues. I think the herd will thin out sooner rather than later. Over the next 2 weeks, you're gonna see it thin out, but that's just kind of where it's at. I even a big look ahead past this week going into next, you have a ton of games. A lot of game times have been announced. I don't see where Notre Dame USC, for all intents and purposes, is going to be a elimination game for the most part. Because USC's got that one loss to Illinois, and then you have Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, Oregon, UCLA. UCLA could end up 8-4 and out of the playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked if they ended up 8-4. Georgia Tech is another fascinating one to keep an eye on. But we'll see where that opens up. Then also CUSA has opened up their midweek games, playing on Tuesday and Thursday. And then in November, MACtion starts. So there is that. I guess we could look at some futures here real quick. The Buckeyes are leading the way for the national championship. They're plus 425. Oregon plus 550. Alabama plus 700. Miami plus 800. Georgia plus 900. And then it jumps to double Georgia's odds with Oklahoma at plus 1,800 and Texas at plus 1,800. I think it's interesting that Vegas has those teams at plus 2,000. Now, do I think that some of that stuff will shift and move as the herd starts to thin out? Yeah. Texas Tech is now minus money to win the Big 12. That's what Vegas has them as. Got them minus money to win the Big 12. Texas Tech obviously spent the most in roster retention in buying players in the portal. Miami is minus 200 to win the ACC. Ohio State's probably going to fall to minus money with a win next week. Oregon, Indiana. Oregon's plus 175. Alabama, they got Alabama as the favorite to win the SEC as of right now. As of Tuesday, October 7th, they have them favored to win the SEC. Georgia at plus 600, Ole Miss plus 600, and A&M plus 650. I know a lot of people get antsy about betting A&M because A&M always finds a way to A&M wake up and be Texas A&M. And then as of today, Deion Sanders has a blood clot procedure, plans to return quickly. Here's what the ESPN.com article says. Colorado coach Deion Sanders has to undergo a medical procedure later Tuesday with the hope of being back at practice the next day. On the sidelines this weekend against Iowa State after the Buffalo Saturday night loss to TCU. He said he thought he was dealing with blood clots again. He has ended his weekly news conference with a medical update saying, "I can't wait to get past this hurdle," and added, has nothing to do with me working at the level I'm trying to compete at. So we'll see where Deion's 58. He's no spring chicken anymore. So we'll see where the Deion Sanders stuff falls. But as we get to the end of the show here, I appreciate everybody who's hung in and stuck with us thus far. Not a big crowd tonight, but it's kind of what it is. We're still in the infant stages of getting this show off the ground. Appreciate everybody. If you can do us the biggest favor, hit that like and subscribe button and help us grow this thing. Also, turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss any of the action that we have going forward. Just a big shout out to everybody who helps on the show, Richie, Carter, everybody of that sort. But also do us the biggest favor, hit the like and subscribe button. That helps us tremendously. And also in the comments, if you watch the show later, I guess the one question I would ask, if you make it this far in the show, is will Texas and will Penn State both miss the playoffs? I'll be interested to read your comments. Will both those teams miss the playoffs this year? That is the burning question. I know that the Texas fans are probably not going to be the biggest fans of mine, but it is what it is. Sark is the Sark and the team got to block out the outside noise realistically and go play your game because you haven't looked great this year. So there is that. I appreciate everybody. Looking forward to looking at your comments. Appreciate everybody. Hit the like and subscribe, turn on the bell notifications, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Everybody have a good night.